Hey, I'm Cody.
And I'm Matt. Welcome to the Trail Chasers podcast presented by trailchasers.net. Today on the show, we talk to Melinda Russell with the International Women's Motorsports Association. We also talk about how much I miss Jose. Jose, I missed you this week, my conspiracy brother.
Oh, man. I think my days are numbered on this show, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, man?
Where's Jose?
I knew it.
Where's Jose?
I think after last week's success, I'm going to have to take a position as like an executive producer and just sit in the background. You can't
produce what we produced.
No.
That's magic.
I tell you what, I never in a million years would have come up with Ted Nugent and Leonard Skinner punching aliens.
You know, the punching, I didn't... Like, having listened to that, like, I don't understand the whole punching thing.
I don't.
But I guess it's a thing, and I didn't look into it or anything like that. I don't have an interest in people punching each other. But that was so going through like that, visualizing that picture. It just looked like an old rock band, you know, how they dressed in the 70s, and Leonard Skinner came into my brain.
Well, and it was, so the background here is, you know, we released that episode on Thursday, and on Friday, Thursday and Friday, it was text messages between Matt and Jose and I, Google searching the image, trying to find the podcast. I mean, the documentary.
Yes.
Yeah. I had said that if you could find the documentary, the three of us should watch it and record and narrate like science theater.
MST3K.
Yeah.
And we thought, oh my God, yes, that's going to be so amazing. And so I was sitting at my desk, like quickly scrolling through, and I thought I had found the documentary. And I was so excited because I started to play it, and it started off with just that cheesy 70s music, like spooky, you know. And I'm like, I think this is it, guys. And you don't watch it yet. That's what we're gonna watch it together. But you know, I couldn't wait, so I just like quickly like fast forwarded, looking like kind of frame by frame to see if it jostled anything in my brain.
Yeah.
And nothing came up, and I was like, I don't think this is it. But I let it play on the way home, like and I couldn't even get through 5 minutes of it. It was so bad, and I just went, you know what, I'm not doing that. I'm not, you know, once you go down that rabbit hole. It's endless. There's endless documentaries and TV shows on it.
How many times have we talked about, you know, we could start a whole, if we had an extra night a week, we could do a whole nother podcast on the crazy conspiracy theory, all that stuff.
You mean basically just record campfire conversations?
I was just going to say, we just need to, I've got a fire pit in the backyard. We'll go out there every night.
Well, then we got to do it like on a Friday or Saturday night. Yeah.
Yeah, when Jose and Matt were here last week, we were talking about, we should do it in another podcast, and I was all, dude, I'm already losing 2 nights a week trying to get, to record this one and edit this one and all that other stuff. I ain't got the time.
No.
Unless we can find a sponsor to pay us to do this.
Still, yeah. That Jose's texting right now, as a matter of fact.
Jose, stop it. You know we're recording. Knock that off.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
He wanted to be on so bad.
I was just going to say,
he knew it.
He knew we were recording, and now he's texting right now at this time so he can feel like he's participating. I see what you're doing, dude. You're angling for my job, bro.
Yeah, I'm not reading that text, Jose. You're not getting on this week.
No, you're not.
So that was a fun episode. I mean,
you guys did awesome, by the way. You guys did great.
You never know, though. I mean, because you literally were like, I don't know why I'm doing this.
No,
this could be bad.
I knew, dude.
It was fun.
I mean, we've all had enough conversations to where I knew exactly what I was getting into. Like when I said the reason I said you guys should do it is because I knew it was going to end up like that and it was going to be a fun episode.
Yeah, the best thing about Jose is like when he like deadpans, like, yes, come on, bro, you know. And you don't know.
Yeah, he'll deliver stuff that you're like, oh my, is he serious?
Yeah.
Is Jose serious right now?
Do you want me to go down this? I don't know.
Matt, I'm worried that Jose's serious right now.
Yeah. Dude, what was the video clip he sent us today?
Oh, yes.
The little goblin thing or something that was caught on a doorbell like camera or whatever.
Yeah, that it was the proof of some
elves or something.
Yeah.
But that was a pretty trippy video.
Yeah, but it looked like a 6-year-old kid with his underwear on his head walking around in the dark.
But I just love it. I love that he sent that video.
Yeah, because he knew it would spark conversation and we'd be going back and forth.
That's right.
So you guys know what you're up against now. If you, for those of you that haven't gone on a trip with us yet, this is either the reason you never go,
yeah, exactly,
or the reason you show up to the next trip.
You know what? I think it's not going to affect anything because I think the people that are going to go are going to be the people that I want to go.
I know what I'm saying is after they hear
and
that episode,
other people don't want to go. I'm glad you guys aren't going because I don't want you guys to be weirded out. Come prepared. Do some research.
Yeah, that's
when he said the dome last week. I thought the dome, like off your head, and then he referenced like the dome,
like the Truman Show dome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so good. I love it.
Down the rabbit hole for sure. We could go down this rabbit hole.
Up, down, side to side rabbit holes, just never ending.
So, with that said, we got an email this week that I wanted to talk to you about.
Oh, we did.
We did, and it was
was it like my mom pestering us or something? Or because I was talking about him?
It was a listener saying, "Please don't ever put Matt and Jose back on the show ever again."
What?
No, it wasn't that at all.
Excuse me, sir. You can't tell me what to do.
No, so this is Dave from Oregon. So going back to a conversation about Mojave Trail. So he said, "Hey guys, your podcast is quickly becoming one of my favorites out of the half a dozen or so I listen to. Most are part of the 4x4 radio network, so please don't tell the others." So nobody tell the others. I currently have a Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon, but I'm seriously thinking about stepping down to a Subaru Forester or maybe even the new Cherokee. My JKU gets horrible fuel mileage, and I really like taking road trips and then explore when I get there. After listening to your last show, I think I'd like to check out the Mojave Road, maybe even make the ride down from Portland, Oregon.
Wow.
To go on one of your highly epic trips. Do you think something like the Forester would do the trip okay? So before I tell you how I responded,
I think I caught the gist of this stuff, but dude, that thing would do fine. Mojave Road.
Yeah, no absolutely.
Especially when we did that point with the ice and the mud, and there was that Outback that I was like, how did that thing get up here?
Oh, you're talking about Pilot Rock Road when there was a Subaru Forester and a Subaru Outback up at Pilot Rock Road at a point where all of us in our trucks were like, dude, we shouldn't be here.
Me and that dude caught each other. I was in the Renegade at the time, and he was looking at me like, how did that thing get up here? And I was doing the same thing to him. How did you get that thing up here?
So speaking of the Renegade, as I was thinking to myself, okay, the Renegade made it absolutely no problem. And I just happened to do some Google foo and found that the Renegade, the stock Renegade, probably not the Trailhawk, but the stock Renegade has 7.9 inches of ground clearance, and the Subaru Forester has 8.7 inches.
Oh, wow.
So it's almost a full inch higher off the ground than the Renegade.
It's not about inches. I mean, it's really how you use the inches.
Usually I would say yes, just out of self-preservation. But no, I mean, the point...
Right, so you have certainly more clearance and being all-wheel drive. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, I think... I mean, there was that BMW that we saw at Traveler's Monument. You can see it in the background of some of the videos I've posted that someone had a BMW. I don't know the BMW, but it was the older
square one,
square 2-door, and they chopped the back trunk off and put 2 tires in. It looked full on rallied out. I mean, the thing was awesome. I ran over and gave him stickers because I was super impressed.
And he threw him right down to the ground.
I'm sure. I'm sure he was not impressed. the point is that something like Mojave Road can be done, like we've talked about, in two-wheel drive most of the way. Especially if you go with a group that's willing to yank you out if something goes haywire. But for the most part, it could do well. And I'm gonna step out on a limb. And if anybody from the Jeep Talk Show is listening, I don't even want to hear your feedback, because
why are you mentioning them?
I'll tell you why. Because the new Cherokee.
Are we going to start a feud? Let's start a feud. Call them out. Do it.
So when the new Cherokees came out, I was on board with everybody else. It was like, that's ugly. I don't like it. It doesn't.
I still think they're ugly.
It doesn't hold true to the tradition. I was a naysayer, hardcore. I have shifted to the point where I think it's a viable platform. There's a couple in the neighborhood here that have a mild like puck lift and a little bit larger tires and a couple bolt-on accessories, and they look really good. And I think for someone that's looking to get better gas mileage, more comfortable ride, and still have the opportunity to do Cleghorn and Pilot Rock and Mojave,
just some mild stuff. Yeah,
I would be willing to say that's an excellent opportunity to do that in that kind of vehicle.
Sure. What's the comp, I guess, because if you're going to get you're talking a Cherokee or Grand Cherokee?
The Cherokee, not the Grand. I mean, I love the Grand Cherokee. Obviously, I owned my
oh, right.
The Grand Cherokee. I'm talking about the new Cherokee.
Yeah, it looks like a athletic shoe.
It looks
or
like
whatever.
sneaker. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I tell you what, there was a guy at Target here in the neighborhood that I parked next to him because I was like, oh my God, look at that thing. It was a little bit of a lift, meteor tires. He put a roof rack and a front grill guard on it, and the thing looked so much better because the issue it's always been that squatty nose, the pointy nose. You put that grill guard on there and lift it a little bit, it looked totally different. So I ended up finding the guy and talking to him for a while. I was really impressed with it. But
you don't want to. I wouldn't want to have to do a bunch of modifications to make my vehicle look cool. I don't.
We're gonna do it anyways.
Well, I don't have to. My truck's amazing.
No, you don't.
Well, no, I still have to do those mods, but I still, you know what I'm saying.
I know what
aesthetically,
you're
it's whatever.
I know. I'm just saying, and we've talked about this quite a bit.
But again, so what's the comp? Knowing that you're going to be able to modify, because it's a Jeep, there's going to be tons of parts to modify it. What would your other option be? In the future, 10 years from now, there's going to be tons of aftermarket parts.
And I even, in my response to him, I even said that I really believe that in a handful of years, when the Cherokee hits the resale market, you're going to see more of them on the road. And I'd be willing to bet that the Cherokee Trailhawk is as capable or more capable than your Trailhawk Renegade was on Mojave, because same technology, bigger platform. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what would be the comp? I mean, I don't know if you would compare the Cherokee to the 4Runner if those fall into the same category. Nissan Pathfinder, but the newer ones are way less off-road focused than the older ones were. I don't know what would fall in that same category as the new Cherokee.
I think those other vehicles you just named, I would look into before getting the Cherokee. Yeah, I think so. Huh. I don't know. I love my Renegade. The Renegade's fun, but you're kind of limited. You just know. Well, there's no way I'm going to go up this area. I'm not going to go through this trail. So there's never the temptation to do something really silly in the Renegade isn't really there. Then again, it's my wife's. Yeah, so how crazy I'm going to get. But either way, I don't know. I honestly, I'd have to test drive one and see how comfy it is, and how it drove. That would go a long way, I guess. Mm-hmm. But the looks don't go. Again, I'd rather have the Renegade. I would rather have the Renegade than that.
Yeah, but also the Renegade. It's if you've got. I mean, you know what it's like as far as room is concerned, and if you're a big guy and you've got a couple teenage kids.
Remember what's his name in Hawaii said? He actually had more room in that Renegade than
his Wrangler.
Yeah,
yeah.
Because the vertically, it's actually pretty tall in there.
It is. I'm trying to do some a look at what the mid-size midsize SUV. Oh, the Volkswagen Tiguan, which shout out to Bash from HK Off Road if he's still listening. He had one and he said it was a great off road vehicle. Jeep Grand Cherokee, Wrangler, Nissan Pathfinder, 4Runner, Land Rover Discovery, Toyota Sequoia, Lexus GX, Chevy Tahoe. Those are some options, but I don't know.
Chevy Tahoe is a midsize?
I wouldn't consider that a Tahoe. The Trailblazer maybe. I don't know. I mean, look, the bottom line is
Durango.
Yeah, but they don't make that anymore. Oh yeah, they do. They do, but
2019 Dodge
yeah, but
Durango.
But have you seen the 2019 Durango? You're not taking that off road, man. I don't care if it's 4-wheel drive. You're not taking it off road. There's a couple in this neighborhood that
dare me. Go get me one. I'll take a Ford Mustang off road.
Oh, I know you will, and you'll get pretty far in it, I'm sure. But I think it goes back to one of the core beliefs that we've had on the show from the get-go is that I don't care what you drive, what badge is on it.
Yeah.
Find a transfer case. Let's hit a trail and go.
No,
man.
absolutely. That's true.
I think there's too much tribalism. I mean, it's kind of inherent in everything we do. The tribalism of the Toyota versus Jeep, the Wrangler versus 4Runner, and all that stuff. But in our group, we've got a good mix of everything. And hell yeah, you know what? You could go buy the Jeep Renegade, or you could go buy that new Lamborghini Rally off-road car they just rolled out as a concept vehicle. We're still going to make fun of you. Like, it doesn't matter what you drive. We're going to make fun of you for it.
Yeah, well, yeah, we will. Absolutely. But it's also, we're driving just anything. You know, we're not...
we are what you got.
Yeah, I'm not tied to any particular brand or whatever. Yeah, I think it's just important to get out there. And like I said last week, I think most people have 4-wheel drive. I don't think they're really aware how capable a lot of these vehicles are.
No. Speaking of which, there was an announcement, Dave, if you're listening. Toyota is making a TRD Pro version of the RAV4.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
So you're going to have the TRD Pro Sequoia, Tundra, Tacoma, 4Runner, and RAV4. And I want to see the Toyota TRD RAV4 versus the Jeep Renegade Trailhawk. I want to see which one of those do well. I bet that RAV4 would do really well.
I'm sure it does. I wouldn't put... I think Toyota's not just going to throw the TRD Pro on just anything.
No.
Just to sell it. I'm sure they'll put some effort into it, and make it actually viable, know.
Agreed. So, I mean, I guess the,
I could be wrong.
Again, I think that our... I'm flipping through some other things to see what other vehicles I could talk about. But at the end of the day, man, put it in drive, drop the transfer case into 4-wheel drive, and let's go. Like, whatever. And we'll figure it out when we get there.
Yeah, but I think that's part of it too. You're more than likely, if you have an interest in off-roading and four-wheeling, I think it's kind of ideally you would want to get something that you could either improve or make more capable by lifting and somehow stuffing bigger tires. So that would be a part of my concern. So with these with the Outback and whatever, is that something that you could do in the future? You're always it's like the Renegade. The Renegade's only going to do what the Renegade
Yeah, but
I don't care how.
If you've decided,
can you get 33s under a Renegade?
No, but if you've decided that's your...
And that's just 33s.
Yeah, I know. If you've decided... even in my truck is extremely capable. It's got a mild lift, 33-inch tires. That thing will take me all over the place. I'm going to hit a trail or a rock or a valley that I'm not going to be able to go in, right? No matter what you do, I don't care how big unless you're building a $200,000 Ultra 4 car... Every vehicle out there that is roadworthy and off-road worthy is going to have a limit, right? So you as an individual have to decide what that limit is.
That's us, though. that's our podcast.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like, well, we're wheeling everyday drivers.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, maybe someday, you know, you'll have a Wrangler that's super built or something so you can drive straight over the mountains, you know, and not have to stop. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's not really our podcast. That's not really our thing. So,
and it's not really, it's not really what we do. Like, you know, I think we mimic what Dave said is, let's go on a road trip to Big Bear, wheel for a day or two, and come home. You know, we are not the, I'm going to put my Ultra Buggy on the trailer behind my fifth wheel in my tow hauler, go out someplace, climb up the side of a building, and then come back. You know, that's just, it's not been our style. It's definitely not within my budget.
No.
You know, so the idea of, you know, finding a vehicle that suits your needs to get you to work and back in a reasonable financial situation without breaking the bank, and, you know, I'm going to go find some dirt roads one day.
Yeah.
Like, that's, I really think that's our niche, right? We are not hardcore rock crawlers.
No.
And we're definitely not mall crawlers. We find that balance of drive your truck to work every day, hit the trail, and make sure you get back on Monday.
Yeah, definitely knowing, you know, now the trails that I've been on the past, you know, couple of years, you know, 2 or 3 years now I know what that's not a crazy idea. Like, most of the you know, having a truck that can do that stuff, the trails that we hit on a regular basis, the places that we go, that's a real thing. Like, it's just gonna take a couple $1,000, but you know, so I can't wait. I can't wait. So now I have the Bug. Yeah. And again, I love my truck. It's capable as it is. I can hit a ton of trails, you know, until I'm able to make that jump where I can stuff some bigger tires, put a lift on it, and what have you. So, you know, that's kind of my frame of mind. But, you know, that's kind of been the plan, you know, since I first came on. Was, you know, we initially started talking about trucks that I would get. Yeah. And we're putting that plan in motion.
Yeah, matter of fact, we talked about that, Dave and anybody else. It's one of our episodes in the. It
was like episode 30 or 29.
Yeah, we talked about
like
different off-road vehicles that were options early on. If you hadn't caught that, so that may be it. But Dave, I guess the point is, go find a vehicle that works and let's roll, man.
Well, what were the options he was talking about? He was talking about the Cherokee, the Outback.
Yeah, he only brought up those two. The Forester and the Cherokee were the two that he had been looking at.
Forester, okay.
Yeah, so, you know, both very viable options, in my opinion, about, you know, the type of wheeling he wants to do.
And you know, what's the wheeling like in, you said Portland?
Portland, yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, it could be just, you know, like awesome trails, not necessarily, maybe a little more difficult than a fire road, obviously, you know, I would assume, or who knows? But I'm sure, you know, I would use your best judgment. You know what you're looking to get into on a regular basis, and yeah, if that Subaru is going to do it, or just that Cherokee, just get something.
Yeah, I told him
get something and find some local buddies to go out there and hit trails with. I
told him to let us know what he gets, and then we'll meet him down here someplace to go. I'm sure. You know, it's funny, after the email, I started looking. I'm like, okay, so how many hours? It's 15 hours to Portland.
Drive all the way up there.
Well, I thought 15 hours to Portland. What's the middle? Let's find in the middle. He can meet us in the middle. I'm like,
it's just flat out there. The middle is like probably somewhere Northern California.
Yeah, it is. It's there's Rubicon, like the Rubicon Trail, but which I want to do someday, but not anytime soon. Looking at my calendar coming up.
Tell him to meet us in Pismo.
Yeah, then it's only a 10-hour drive for him.
Well, that's him. You want to hang out? Meet us in Pismo, dude.
All right, we'll see. Well, I've been in email contact with Dave. Dave, we appreciate you letting us tell your story here and talk about it, because I think it's relevant to a lot of our listeners.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, man, let's go wheeling. I don't care.
That's it. Just hit the dirt.
You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
The Trail Chasers podcast is a member of the 4x4 Radio Network. If you want more off-road shenanigans in your ear holes, Go to 4x4radionetwork.com to hear episodes of the Jeep Talk Show, the 4x4 podcast, the Center Steer podcast, and On the Trail with Kevin and Scott.
Hey, everybody. We have Melinda Russell on the phone. She is from the International Women's Motorsports Association. You can find them on Instagram at IWMA and on Twitter also at IWMA Nation. How are you doing tonight, Melinda?
I'm doing really well. How about you guys?
Not bad at all. Thank you so much for taking the call. You're on the East Coast, I think, right? So your time is much later for you than it is for us.
I am on the East Coast. The NASCAR race got over just a little while ago, as you probably know, or if you follow NASCAR. Good old Michigan, we rained out yesterday, and I was there and missed all that. But it's still not quite dark here. It's getting there, but we love these long summer nights when it stays light for a long time.
Yeah, you know, I don't follow NASCAR. There were a couple years where I did, like I was really excited about it, and I just, for whatever reason, I just dropped off.
I think they should go back to like the 60s, because I think you had to sell a certain number of cars to qualify as like a
manufacturer,
like a stock car.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I think it should go back to that. Like, I think they should, if you're racing a Camry, it should be like a 4-cylinder Camry goes, against a Honda Accord, and I think they should go back to that.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, because I listen to Sirius Radio and I listen to the NASCAR station, Channel 90. I listen to it a lot. And they interviewed Joey Logano last week, and they were asking about racing hybrid cars, and he said, if that's where the trend is going for racing, and then that's what we should be racing, because it's called stock car racing,
right?
And we've really gotten away from it. And it's funny that you mentioned that today, because I just heard him say that. So,
I have no doubt that in the not too distant future, there's going to be at least a circuit or series of all electric cars. Right? Because,
I'm sure there will.
Because think about like the Teslas and what they're capable of. I've driven one. I know what they're capable of. But that technology,
can't they drive themselves too, though? Like, then what are we asking for?
But I'm just saying, like,
yeah, and then you don't have any of those accidents, like, because it knows when you're going to hit something. So
you're
that's
taking
not
the fun out of racing, Cody.
Well, I'm just saying, like
all the accidents and explosions.
When the back in the day, the NASCAR, all that motorsport stuff, the technology that the manufacturers were dumping into their race cars is what advanced the vehicles that we have today. So I think that needs to happen with the electric cars. Let's make them race, and then pretty soon they'll start having superchargers and whatever the hell they need.
You want to supercharge an electric car?
Can you do that?
I don't think so, dude.
You can put a bigger battery on it. I don't know. Melinda, you probably know more about it than we do.
I don't know all that kind of stuff, and that just doesn't sound any fun to me. I don't know.
Thank you.
They're going to have to talk me into that, I think.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye out for what happens.
So that'd be a perfect example right there of one of our tangents.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
I brought NASCAR up, so that's my fault. So
it is.
All right, so Melinda, tell me about the International Women's Motorsports Association. I wasn't familiar with it until you connected with us on LinkedIn, and like I said, I've done a little bit of research on your website, which is iwmanation.com. But tell me what it is.
Well, it's interesting that almost a couple years ago now, it'll be 2 years in August, I was looking for a way to connect with other women in motorsport that liked racing, basically. And I have a send-out cards business, which is it's a stay-in-touch system. Lots of businesses use it. People use it personally to send cards and gifts. And I was also looking for a way to reach out to women in motorsports to use that system for their teams as well. So it was kind of a two-item thing that I was looking for, because I'm a woman in motorsports and I wanted to grow my send-out card business. So I started looking. On a Sunday afternoon, I was looking for, like a Facebook group, or somewhere where I could connect with other women, because there's a group for everything on Facebook, I thought. And when I started looking, I couldn't find anything. And so then I started Googling associations for women in motorsports and every kind of word you can think of. And nothing came up. So I was getting a little frustrated, and I was talking to my husband about it, and he said, well, why don't you just start something? And I was a little overwhelmed at the time because I had back surgery. It was 2 years ago in January I had back surgery, and it didn't go very well. And so I deal daily with, I don't want to call it pain because it's not like somebody stabbing you 100% of the time, but I can constantly feel the 2 rods and the 16 screws that are in my back. So when I sit against a chair or anything, it feels like I'm leaning against a re-rod. So I don't always feel like, doing all the things I used to do before that. But my husband's like, oh, you can do it. He was very encouraging about it. So on that Sunday afternoon, I put a post on Facebook, and it basically said, I'm starting a project involving women in motorsports. If you or someone you know would be interested in knowing more about it, tag yourself. And by the end of that evening, I had 100 people that had either tagged someone else or themselves. And by the next night, I had 200. And it's just grown and grown. I have a little over 6,000 followers, and honestly, in the last 6 months, I haven't even really tried to add a lot of followers because I'm kind of a one-man band at the moment, and I've been so busy doing other things that I haven't pursued growing that following other than what it just naturally grows on its own.
Wow, and
go ahead.
I was not to cut you off, but I love that because I've always, especially doing this show, you see people, you see women in motorsports or women in off-road community or women who are connected, not just like tangentially as passengers, but women who are passionate about this stuff. And I think there's an assumption made that the women involved in motorsports is a small, minor community, and there's not much there. But the minute you put out something like this, like, hey, I want to talk to women in motorsports, boom, you get this huge response because they're out there, and like you, they were probably looking for some way to connect.
Absolutely, and here's the thing. So my son had a race car for several years. So I think he finally sold it maybe 2-3 years ago, and he passed away last November. He was really the one that got myself and the rest of our family really into racing. But when he had his race car, and as a car owner, and we did events and things on the track, but so I knew there were women that raced and women that helped in the pits and things with their husbands. So I knew there were women out there, but I had no idea the numbers until I started this association.
Wow.
There's hundreds of thousands of women who love motorsports. I guarantee it. I wasn't much of a drag race follower, even though I have a really great track 15 minutes from my house, but I'm more of a short track, asphalt short track racing. That's what my son raced. That's what I knew about. I have 2 tracks, each within 15 minutes of my house. That's where we go to watch races. So the drag racing field of motorsports was really a little bit foreign to me, still is a little bit foreign. I'm learning more and more all the time. But when I started this association and I started following, on Facebook, I would just start following racetracks, their Facebook pages. And then I would get, a request from someone to follow their page and then follow that page. And so I follow probably 500 racing affiliated pages between the NASCAR tracks and Eldor and all kinds of tracks, all sizes. But the thing that surprised me the most was the number of women that are in drag racing.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
And little girls.
John Force's daughters are all into
Yeah.
it. I think they dominate it now.
I think I've watched 2 drag races in my life. Like if there's not a crash that shows up on the news, I've not seen it. Right? That's just,
we live in like the home.
I know.
Of drag racing. We're 20 minutes from Pomona, so and as a kid I went numerous times. It's insane. It is insane how much horsepower.
We should go. We should take the kids.
Someone, I can't remember now. I just read a post. They went 335 miles an hour.
Yep.
When they go down the track,
in a quarter
your
mile,
whole body shakes if you're sitting in the stands.
Yeah, the stands rumble.
Everything. Yeah.
Wow.
My husband and I were just in Joliet, which is by Chicago, last weekend. Not a day or two ago, but a week ago. And we went to the NHRA Nationals on Saturday. And, it's insane how fast they go. And just that rumbling that you have, like I said, the whole bleachers vibrate, your body vibrates. I mean, it's crazy. But I've met some amazing women. Actually, a lot of the women that I've met personally race motorcycles, pro stock motorcycles.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, my husband and I are both motorcycle licensed people, and we used to go to Mid-Ohio and watch the motorcycle races. And so it just happens that these women race motorcycles. I connect to that because I had a motorcycle for a while. So, and how crazy fast they go.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. But I think that was one of the things that surprised me the most was the amount of women in drag racing. I wouldn't have thought that there would be that many. Yes, you hear about Courtney and Brittany Force, and you hear about Erica Enders, and you hear the top names. But, wow, a lot of times, it kind of falls off as you go down. But the little junior dragsters that race, tons of little girls in those races. So
wow.
They're starting young. They're starting at 5, 6, 7 years old, and they're so dang cute, and they weigh about 40 pounds.
Yeah.
They're so little. But
it's funny, and Matt's looking at me with a look on his face, and I know exactly why, because at the Lucas Off-Road races last year, we were there at the Glen Helen track, and at one point the junior midget course, and they're basically these little go-karts that have a fiberglass Jeep bodies on them, truck bodies on them, and like there were 4 little girls, and my daughter's 3.5 years old right now. There were 4 little girls that cruised by, and Matt's like, "We got to get Presley in one of these trucks." So I cannot wait till I can get my daughter into one of those trucks.
Well, I have a young gal that's actually. She's in my mentorship program. Her name's Temperance Boyd. She lives in Reading, Michigan. I met her through Facebook. Well, actually, I met her dad and a friend of mine who lived in Texas went to high school together. She knew I was interested in racing. She knew his daughter raced. She connected us. We'd become like family. TK started racing at the age of 3.5, and she raced quads. Wow. And she's like a 2-time national champion, and she's 10 years old now and races mini sprints. But, you start at 3.5, you're pretty good by the time you're 7.
Oh, I bet.
I mean, that sounds crazy.
I bet. That's awesome. And
all you need is money, Cody.
Yeah, I don't have money or time, but I'm going to try to make it work. Yeah, so Matt, you know this. My wife and I both had dirt bikes. I'd sold my dirt bike to a new home, which is Matt, but I kept my wife's dirt bike because it's a little 110. And my thought was I wanted to keep the motor out of that thing and build a go-kart for Presley and use that, but haven't gotten there yet.
It'll happen.
Oh,
it'll certainly
let's do
happen,
it.
especially if you take her places where she sees other little girls doing it. Mm-hmm. I think that's the thing. It's, if that little girl can do it, so can I. And that's one of the things that I love hearing from women that I interview, because I do a monthly digital magazine all about women in motorsports, a weekly podcast. Quite often I interview someone just like we're doing tonight, and then sometimes I just get on and just talk about whatever's going on, or maybe I've read something that I want to share with my followers. But I hear from girls all the time that say, my dad raced, I grew up around the racing and it's in my blood. Mm-hmm. Or my mom raced, or my grandpa raced. It's very rare that you talk to somebody who hasn't been around it that fell in love with it.
Yeah, and Presley already, I mean, she goes out, Matt's got 2 boys, and we take the kids out when we can, and she's already fearless. She wants to go faster and jump higher and do all those things, and whenever I'm out in the garage working on the truck, she'll grab a screwdriver and start jamming it in places because she thinks she's helping.
Right.
But that's the kind of thing, and through the course of starting this show, I've had conversations with some of those women in the off-road motorsports world. And, I've reached out to a couple more. There's Erica Sachs, who's a navigator for Sarah Price, who's a racer for Desert Racing. I'd like to get both of those ladies on the show. I mean, just watching those young girls that have broken the barrier, started to do this, and are doing it well and having a lot of success. That's extremely inspiring. And I will call myself out on it. Like I've always felt that, I'm pretty supportive of equal rights and all that stuff most of my life. But until you have a little girl, you don't really notice it as much. And I think ever since I had my daughter, I look around at the world from what I believe her viewpoint's going to be in 10, 20, 15 years. And no one's going to tell her she can't do something. If she decides she's going to do it, then she's going to do it. And watching women in motorsports, women in technology, women in engineering, watching those women do those things, that's laying the groundwork for my daughter to have those opportunities as she gets older. And I'm super appreciative of it.
Oh, absolutely. And, they say they're trying to get girls more into science and math and all that when they graduate from high school or college. And, we need more girl engineers. As I mentioned, I was just at MIS on Sunday. Normally I would have been there for the weekend, but we had a family wedding on Saturday. And so I took my granddaughter, who's 15, who races. I took my son-in-law, her dad, and we went to MIS, and I took them into the garages, and they met my friend Liz, who is a tire specialist for Chris Buescher's NASCAR team. She took us all through the hauler, and she was, McKenna, my granddaughter, is interested in some kind of career in motorsports in one way or the other. Mm-hmm. And so she was telling her, we have 2 engineers, that are women that work for us. Our PR person is a woman. This is a woman. That's a woman. There's a lot of women that work in NASCAR or any other kind of motorsports series or whatever. It's not always the driver. They're behind the scenes. They're the travel person, booking all the hotels and the flights and the everything for the team. So, careers for women in motorsports are abundant. Mm-hmm. And, honestly, I think that teams are probably going to be looking more and more to hire some of these women in a male-dominated sport because, one, it probably makes them look like they're more diverse if they have women on their staff, as long as they're qualified, of course. So, I talk a lot about that on our podcast, or I try to interview women who work in motorsports but work in something that you wouldn't normally think about a woman doing in motorsports. Typically, we think about the driver. Yeah. And we all know that I don't care what motorsport you're in, whether it's motorcycle racing or drag racing or circle track, you can't just be a good driver. You've got to have the money to back it up. Yeah, yeah. And unfortunately, there's a lot of really good drivers out there that will never get the exposure or have that opportunity because they don't have a connection to the finances. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, when I interview, especially younger girls that are, let's say, 20 and under, and I say, what's your goal? I want to be a NASCAR driver. I love that that's their goal, but I also know that that's few and far between. Mm-hmm. And so I want to try to prepare these girls for plan B. Okay, so you don't make NASCAR. You can still race. You can do what you love, but you can also have a career where maybe you can impact the racing, wherever you work, the racetrack, the race team, and do it through some other occupation besides being the driver.
Yeah, for a while. Sorry to cut you off, but to add to that, so my wife went to school for marketing, graphic design, PR stuff, right? So she started her career doing other things. She found herself at a tire distributor, and for a period of time, she was in charge of their motorsports program, where she was working with Formula Drift drivers, making sure that they had the tires they needed because they were sponsored, and following up on all the PR stuff. She was fully engrossed in that world for a while, and she liked cars. She grew up around them. Her dad has a bunch of classic cars that they've worked on, and but she found herself in a position to be able to experience motorsports from the vantage point of marketing and PR.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So one of my friends that I've made through just founding this association is Ginger Baker Rust, and she is the chief marketing officer for Ryan Newman. And she's the only woman with that position in all of NASCAR.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of opportunities out there for women to get involved. If you want to be the NASCAR driver, go for it. I'm just going to tell them to go for it. But you also need to prepare for maybe plan B or something else that you're interested in where you can stay in the motorsports arena but not be the driver. And so, I try to interview, like I said, interview women that can be encouraging about that. So I do that. I do interview a lot of drivers on my podcast because that seems to be, kind of the most popular kind of person for the interviews. The stories in the magazine, once in a while you'll read a story about someone you may have heard of, but most of the stories in the magazine are people you've probably never heard of. They all have a great story, and I love telling those stories. I owned a newspaper for 10 years when I lived in West Central Illinois, and the paper was called the Eagle News because we lived right along the Mississippi where the eagles nested in the winter. So it was called the Eagle News, but we also called ourselves the Good Newspaper. We didn't print the court reports or any of that kind of stuff. All the other papers around us did that. So if you wanted to read all that, you could. But I did, human interest stories about the people in our community, and lots of school and sports things. So this magazine has that same flavor to it. It's the human interest stories. It's how did you get started racing and why? What do you love about it?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of thing. So that's really what the magazine's about. And that's what we're up to right now.
So
hopefully down the road here, we're going to be starting to do some events. So that's kind of our next progression that we're working towards, is to hopefully at some point what we want to do is have women-only events at, let's say, Michigan or Chicagoland or any track that will have us come and do an event for women and have someone, just talk a little bit about things that are related to women and women who work. You're a mom, you're a wife, you're a race car driver. How do you balance it? Just life things. It's probably not going to be any kind of technical stuff because that's not my arena.
Yeah.
I'm more about the relationship side of these women and, how do they balance everything they do and what can people do to help them and just that kind of thing. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Let's talk about that, the balance, because, you've got a lot going on. I don't know. I'm exhausted just listening to the things that you're currently working on. Let's unpack it a little bit and talk about the magazine. So you had this newspaper, you're now doing this digital magazine. How much time are you putting into that, and how do people go find it? And what's the foundation? Give me the background on the magazine, because I think that, to me, we do the podcast. We'll talk about your podcast next, because I think that'd be the easiest one for me to relate to. Matt and I do this every week too, but the idea of trying to put together a magazine and release it on a regular basis is. That seems like a lot of work. So talk to me about that.
It is a lot of work. It's more, time consuming, I guess. As far as the work, is the work hard? No. The work isn't hard, but it is time consuming. So what I've done from the beginning is, because I knew that I could not literally, on the telephone probably interview 10 to 15 women a month just because of schedules. So my magazine, my association is international. I've met women from, Great Britain, all over Europe, lots of Australians, Canadians, and all across the United States. So just like you guys, you're probably I'm guessing California is 3 hours different than I am on the East Coast. So, for you to get out of work at 5:00, it's already 8:00 in Michigan. And you got to go home. By the time you're ready, to interview, I'm probably in bed. When I get up, you're still in bed. And then you go to work. So I decided I got to figure out a way to reach these women, make it easy for them to answer my questions on their time frame and get it back to me. So I developed a questionnaire.
Oh, cool.
And it asks for all their personal information, their name, address, and everything. And then I ask them questions. And then what I do is I write the articles based on those questions. And if there's anything that I don't understand or I want to know more about, then I either email them back and we set up a time to talk, or a lot of times it'll just, it'll be email communication with these women, because that's the easiest for them and the easiest for me, basically because of the time differences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So they come into me, in a questionnaire form. I ask for 3 to 5 photos, and I write the story based on that, and then put it in the magazine, lay it out, and I do all of that.
Wow.
I do have a lady that's helping me write a little bit now. She's actually in California, Linda Spangler. She's been writing some stories for me because she loves to write, and she offered to help me, and I'm not ever going to turn that down.
Yeah.
So she's awesome, and she's been writing for me for the last couple of months, and she's going to continue. And I have another gal that's coming on board who also just likes to write, loves what I'm doing, and is not looking for any compensation at this time, which is a good thing for all of us. And so we're just going to continue and grow the magazine. We've got to come up with some advertisers here soon to help make the magazine grow, that and the podcast, and that's a challenge, as I'm sure you guys know too. Everybody's looking for sponsors, and
Yep.
But yeah, so I'm working on that.
I'm still thinking about the compensation thing.
You're not going to get any compensation, damn it.
What?
You knew that when you signed up for this.
No, I didn't.
Oh, well, I should have told you. You're not going to get compensated in any way.
Oh, man.
So
the compensation is the good, warm feeling in your heart when you tell a story about somebody and they call you or they send you a message and they say, thank you so much for sharing my story, and how proud they are to have it in a magazine. And for me, that's worth so much, because a lot of these women would never have their story told. There's nowhere else to tell it.
The last time I had like a warm feeling in my chest, I thought I was having a stroke.
A heart attack? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I love the commercial where Kevin Harvick's on the shelf and the guy's picking up the oil.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then Clint Boyer says, I'm not getting paid for this.
Yeah,
and I have to laugh, because that's kind of how all of us are. I'm not getting paid for
me
this.
and Clint.
Nope.
Me and Clint.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. So where do people go to find the magazine when they want to watch it, when they want to read it?
So all they have to do is give me their email address. I'll put them in my email list, and when the magazine comes out, they'll get the link to the magazine. It comes in a PDF form. They'll be able to open it up, and it's also available on our website, iwmanation.com. My email is iwmanation@gmail.com. So if they want to send me their email and say, please add me to your magazine list, or they can find me on Facebook, Melinda Russell, or they can find us on Facebook, International Women's Motorsports Association. Any of those places, they can message me with their email address. We're happy to add them to the list. We also share the link to the magazine to a lot of racetrack pages, NASCAR track pages, to get it out there, which is always a good place for people to pick up the magazine. But the best way to know you're always going to get it is to share your email. So one of the cool things we started in January is our magazine is now what I call interactive. So if we have a story about, let's just say, Erica Enders, we're going to have a story about her. We'll write the story, and of course we have the pictures. But then, depending, I'll try to put in the magazine 4 or 5 videos. So I have a program that I can put my magazine into and add videos or links to things where when people open up that link to that magazine and they turn to page 7 and there's the story about Erica Enders, and all of a sudden the page comes alive and it's one of her it's her going down the track.
Oh, wow.
And that's been really cool. It's been really well received. I don't know of any other magazine of any kind that's doing that right now, at least not in motorsports. And so, that's one of the things we're going to focus on when we talk to our advertisers, that their advertising can literally come alive on the page. And And that's been really fun to put together, open those up and see those live videos. So
yeah, that sounds really cool.
It is very cool.
And so with your questionnaire process and the interviews and stuff, how much of the people that are featured in the magazine are also crossover and get featured in the podcast?
Quite often I do that.
Yeah,
quite often. Or they might start on the podcast and then we'll do a story about them in the magazine.
Okay.
So we do that quite a bit. Just because, typically I don't know. I mean, these women that I've met, I didn't know them at all before the IWMA. And now when I, go to events and they're there, I get big hugs. It's like we've known each other forever. Just because we've connected, maybe we've had their story in the magazine, maybe not. Maybe we've just connected on Facebook. I share a lot of events. I share a lot of things about women. So let's just say Andy Rawlings is a pro stock motorcycle racer. She and I became friends just through Facebook. And she was at Joliet last weekend. We met for the first time in person, got a big hug from her. It's like it's old home week, It's like we've known each other a long time, even though we just met in person.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that for me, that's why, when you say the compensation, that is compensation for me, is the friendships and the relationships I've made. But, that's how I've met or heard about 99.9% of all these women is social media. And, good, bad, or indifferent, however you feel about social media, for me, it's connected me to amazing people, and I've been able to tell their stories, which blesses me, blesses them, and maybe helps them. They go to a new sponsor and say, yeah, I was in this magazine.
Yeah.
Whatever helps. And so,
Well, and I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier is you'd made the comment that you see these women that grew up in it and that, they started down this path early. If someone's never exposed to this, then they may never make this choice, right? So featuring someone in a magazine or on a podcast that may get heard by somebody somewhere, that could potentially have a long-lasting impact where, one of our listeners today is listening to it in the car with their daughter and she says, you know what? I think I want to do that. You know what I mean? That's, that's one of the things that we talk about with our show is, like we told you earlier, is we believe everybody's got a story to tell. We want to help tell your story, right? So, if your story or the story of one of the ladies that you interview resonates with male or female, boy, girl, whatever, and that story helps inspire someone to do something, then man, that's everybody wins at that point.
Well, absolutely. And a lot of these women are involved in other things besides racing. They stand for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. There's an association against drivers against bullying, and there's all kinds of things out there that they have other causes that are dear to their hearts. And it may be that it's plastered on their race car, but only the people where they race are going to see that. But the magazine gives them a chance to share a little bit about that as well, these different causes that they care about. And, a lot of them have a deep personal story about why that cause means a lot to them, Yeah. For me, it's suicide prevention because my son passed away in November. So now that has become very near and dear to my heart to get the word out that there's always somebody there that cares.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So transitioning from the magazine to the podcast, when did you start doing that?
Well, I started by accident. So
all of us started by accident.
Feels like an accident, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have some friends, Michael Wood and Andy Jack, and they run the Midwest Compact Touring Series here in what's based around the Midwest. They go north and east, and I'm not sure where all because they're always traveling. It's a traveling series for front wheel drive cars. And that started to grow, and so they were on Facebook, but it was via, I can't remember, something .tv program that they had. And so they asked me, I've been friends with them a long time. I'm very supportive of what they do. I go and help at their events whenever I can. And so they had asked me if I'd be interested in doing a 15-minute or so interview on their show with a woman. And I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know, I was a newspaper girl. I was behind the scenes. I didn't have to talk to them. But anyway, they convinced me that I should do it. And then my part of the show was getting very popular. So they were like, Melinda, you should really just have your own show. So we partner together. Sometimes I'm still on their show, but they do a show on Monday nights and I do a show on Tuesday nights. And theirs is all about front-wheel drives in their series, and mine's all about women in motorsports. But they were the ones that pushed me to do it, because as I started to do the interviews, of course I had my written list of questions that I would ask the women, and then I got to the point where I didn't need those questions anymore. And then when I got to that point, I felt like, okay, this maybe is something that I could do on a more regular and a more serious basis, because it feels comfortable now. Yeah. And so we use Zoom, which is our program. So when you watch our podcast, it's actually, you can see me and the other person. It's more like a TV show in a way, but I call it a podcast. So, and it airs on our Facebook page on Tuesday nights at 7:00 Eastern time.
Very cool. And that's the IWMA Nation on the Facebook page?
Yeah, it's actually the whole word spelled out, International Women's Motorsports Association.
Okay.
And you'll find us on Facebook, and it'll air there on Tuesdays at 7. Then we have a YouTube channel called Racing Girls Rock, IWMA Nation, and most of our interviews are on there. I'm a little behind getting them posted, but I try to post all the interviews on there as well, so people can go back and watch them if they want to, or if it's, the person that I interviewed, they have a place to send people to say, hey, my interview's on this page. So we also have the YouTube channel.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So let me ask, if you had the opportunity to talk to a young woman that's listening to this now that was considering motorsports in some way, what piece of advice would you give her?
I would tell her to go for it. I ask that same question of a lot of the interviews I do, and nearly every one of them say, don't let people squash your dreams. Give it a try and see if it's really something you like. Maybe if you're not sure, ask somebody, hey, would you mind if I, drove your car around the track, or if they had a practice night or something? Give it a try and see. But don't let anybody tell you that girls don't belong at the racetrack, because they do, and they belong behind the car, in the car, under the car. They can be the tire person, they can be the crew chief, whatever it is that they're interested in. But don't let anybody stop you from pursuing that dream, because you don't want to go back and have any regrets. One of the things that I've used pretty much all my life is no regrets. So #no regrets.
I love it.
Through life, through racing, through whatever, through your family, whatever it is, have no regrets. And so a lot of times if you see me post something and you see #no regrets at the end, you'll understand why that's there. So I would just tell them. And, if it's a young gal, then it's not her you got to convince, it's the parents. And a lot of times they're worried about safety, obviously cost, but there seems to be always ways to work those things out. Safety, obviously, there's no two ways about it. You got to buy the equipment and you got to follow the rules.
Yeah, well, but honestly, I don't think. Sorry to cut you off. I don't think that's, at least for me. So I know I'm on the skewed end. Just a backstory here. God, my wife's going to kill me for telling this story. But and if anybody from Child Protective Services is listening, please pause it.
Oh no, they're not listening. Don't worry about it. Go ahead, tell your story.
We used to play a game called Baby Catch, and my daughter, we have a very tall bed and big comforters and stuff, and my daughter would run and jump off the bed so I could catch her, and I would throw her up in the air back onto the bed on her back, and she would hit the pillows and the comforters and everything, and she would giggle and laugh and get up and run and do it again. And my wife wanted to kill me the first time I started doing this, but it's a thing. Now, so my level of concern for safety is probably very different than some other parents, and I recognize that. But I think, growing up, the quote unquote normal things of soccer and softball and swimming and volleyball and basketball, there's safety issues there. There's always chances to get hurt in doing those things. I believe that with all the safety precautions that are in motorsports, it's probably as safe or safer than any of those other extracurricular activities.
Oh, 100%. My kids all played basketball, and I was a cheerleading coach for 10 years. And you can get hurt in cheerleading, you can get hurt in basketball, soccer, every one of those sports, and you have no protection. Mm-hmm. No protection whatsoever, especially basketball and soccer.
Yeah.
So true. And about you throwing your daughter running off the bed, to me that was developing trust.
Oh yeah.
She knew you were going to catch her, and so from a very early age,
I wouldn't have trusted you.
Jumped off the bed into your arms, knowing that my dad's got me. And really, what you've done is you've taught her something very valuable from a very, very small age, that you're going to be there to catch her, and that you're a fun dad at the same time. So if Kyle Busch can throw Brexton up in the air after he wins a race, I think you're safe.
Yeah. The only downside to that is that she trusts me even when I'm not paying attention. So
I get that.
There have been times where out of the corner of my eye, I see a flying baby coming off of a ladder or a chair or something, and I got to turn and quickly catch her. But no, I love that. I love the idea of going for it, not regretting it, and making it happen. And I think that women like you and other women in motorsports that are opening those doors and providing that voice and knocking down the wall so that girls like my daughter will at some point not have to think about whether or not this is something that she can or should do. It's just going to be part of life, and it's an option that she'll have. And I appreciate that for what you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate those kind words. I didn't start this thinking that I was going to influence or impact anybody, and yet I have been able to connect people to each other that I thought could mentor or help each other, one help the other. And one of the things I've always lived by is people come into your life for a reason, and you don't always know what that is, but at some point you probably will know what that is. And I've just met so many, I just keep saying amazing, I don't know what other word to call them, women who balance a full-time job, a family, and either they race, their husband races, sometimes they all race, kids are doing stuff, and I just think, wow, she's got a lot on her plate, and I want to do whatever I can to not only connect and celebrate what she does, but also to maybe find the answer to a little problem she has, or somebody else can connect with her and say, hey, try this, and that's what it's all been about.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, look, we really appreciate you coming on the show and telling your story and talking about this stuff. Like I said, it's got a special place for me with having a little girl, and I'm looking forward to what she's going to accomplish somewhere down the road. And I know Uncle Matt will be running the pit crew while she's Uncle Matt and her two cousins will be.
Will I get paid for that too?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to get any payment.
There is
same deal. Same deal.
Just so, as long as you are doing stuff with me, just accept that there's no compensation whatsoever.
Man. All right.
I got food. I'll
that's
you.
Cool.
There
that
you
works.
go. Okay, cool.
Hey, that's compensation.
That's right.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Melinda, for joining us. I appreciate it, and I don't want to take up your entire night, so I'm going to let you go at this point. But is there anything else you want to say, or any place you want to send people so that they can connect with you in the future?
I guess just, check out the magazine, iwmanation.com, and see if it's something you want to read every month. If so, get me your email address either through Facebook or through my email, iwmanation@gmail.com, and I'd love to put you on the mailing list. And the other thing is, if you or someone you know would make a great story for the magazine or an interview for the podcast, I'm always looking for new names. So same way, just, find me on Facebook or send me an email and let me know who they are and how to get a hold of them, and we'll have them on a future issue.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Melinda. You have a great night.
All right. Thank you. You guys too.
Thank you. We would really love to hear your feedback. Please go to trailchasers.net/contact and drop us a line or leave us a voicemail at 951-395-DIRT.
You can also stay up to date with all of our shenanigans by going to trailchasers.net/register and signing up for our event and trail run notifications.
iTunes reviews really help us out, and we would really appreciate it if you can go and rate us and give us some feedback.
And thanks again to our sponsor, Falcon Tire, for all of their support, and to Ryan Torigno for all the music on the show. You can find him at RyanTerrigno.com.